This week on Supercars Talk, I discuss a New Zealand kid playing a video game and winning, complain about how cold it is in the shed, and hopefully have some friends answer a question I put to them. After having a reasonable run at iRacing last weekend at Watkins Glen, young Scott McLaughlin from New Zealand took on from the footsteps of Scott Dixon and won his second IndyCar race. It is on the iRacing game, so I suppose it doesn't get put down as a proper IndyCar race, but they had a race at Barber Motorsports Park. As I'm filming this on Sunday afternoon, it was this morning or Saturday afternoon, evening in America land. Scotty out-strategized the rest of the field and went on to win. His teammate at Penske, Will Power, was second, and Sage Karam, who he basically dominated the previous round. I think he threw the controller in the bin and went home halfway through the race because things didn't go his way. But yeah, it was great performance by Scott. Could be a sign of things to come in the Supercars ESeries. With this global pandemic happening that you may have heard about at the moment, Supercars is discussing, what kind of formats and that we're going to see for the rest of the year. They are talking about 2-day race formats, which was trialled at Winton last year. Talking about more of that happening towards the end of the year, obviously to try and fit things in, would make it easier to do back-to-back race weekends. And also they're talking about having spectator-free weekends, mainly because of, at the moment we can't go out and see more than one I'm not sure on the rules totally, but essentially if we want to go for a walk somewhere, we're allowed to see one person who's not from our household. So trying to, host a Supercars round with, say, 50,000 spectators is not going to happen at the moment. So they're trying to then obviously minimise the amount of people there with marshals and everything. Obviously, if you've got no fans, then you don't need to bring a lot of the extra stuff there. Like, you need 2 people on the gate that stop anyone from coming in. You don't need all the merchandise people, things like that. You don't need the Dagwood dog seller and all of that kind of stuff. So it makes it a lot easier to host an event from that point of view. And also it probably means there's more of a chance of getting something going before the end of the year. And also with if there's no spectators going, they can't have as many complaints about only being a 2-day event, because one of the arguments was that you get spectators in on a Friday and things like that, and you don't get the income for the track doesn't get the income from the spectators coming on Friday, which if there's no spectators, don't have that income to worry about. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. I'm thinking at the moment it's going to be hard. Bathurst could actually be the first round, which is a hard one if spectators and things like that, the way we're looking at the moment. I think maybe we should be looking at the Bend as the first race, because there's not going to be any spectators there anyway, so it's a good one to trial with no spectators. Everybody's favourite quote factory, Roland Dane, has come out this week and said Supercars should stick to their DNA of raucous cars when the Gen 3 comes out. This is one of those times I agree with him. I actually agree with a lot of Roland Dane stuff, but it seems to be, there's a lot of stupid comments get said out in the media, and they probably get twisted and things like that as well, which make them sound worse. I think this is a good idea. I think the cars should be made a bit more basic and, not full NASCAR, but basically they're all the same underneath and you just put a shell over them. I was actually discussing with a friend during the week, and we're just kind of tossing up this idea where my idea of what the Super Utes should have been, maybe that's something that the supercars should look down that route where, we have, a similar frame and that to what we have now. You have the big loud V8 engine and that, it's nice and low, and you put one of these truck bodies over the top. So who knows what's happening with GM, but I mean, Ford's got the Ranger, and then as we saw with Super Utes, you kind of had some of the factories getting involved. If you don't have to develop an engine program, maybe they all run a crate LS motor or something like that, go the LS. Or, we could have the engines that we have now, some of them could build bespoke ones and shit like that. People don't want to throw away these $100,000 engines. That is just ludicrous in my mind that they cost that much. But, maybe as long as really that the cars are low, I think, like the Super Utes were stupid because they're, 5 mile up in the air like a proper full drive ute thing, whatever you want to call them. If the cars are nice and low, the racing's close, with that it's probably going to be quite easy to get manufacturer sign off on these kind of things. So we'll get different manufacturers involved. If the cars, though, if they're cheap and easy to build and maintain, you don't so much need the manufacturer in to get them at funding. If it's fun and whatever, you'll have sponsors flocking to it, so it's not so bad. Kelly Racing has handed back their Holden Astras to the Australian Racing Group, kind of confirming that they were never really Kelly cars in the first place. And they were just given to them by the ARG so that they could have more cars in the race. I'll leave that for now. I had to laugh though when I saw the article. They had a photo of the Alex Rullo car, and it had a big logo on the rear quarter panel, a Holden thing, and it had, I've got it written down here, future-proof the future, which was that great Holden bullshit thing last year. I think it had something to do with their fixed price servicing or something gay like that. That's, in my experience, you get your fixed price servicing for 5 years or whatever crap they told me at the time, go into the dealership, get your car serviced, and you get stung for like double the amount because, that's not actually the policy now. Sure, you bought the car when we had this policy, but now we've changed it to this future-proof crap thing. Having said that, the last time a service that I had last year, there was no fixed price on it. A service that I had this year, it was back to a fixed price. There was actually more than the initial fixed price, but it was less than what they told me the previous time what the next service was going to be, if that makes any sense. So I am a bit bitter about the Holden service thing. I will give you the tip on that one, and that's another reason why I won't be buying a Holden next time round, other than the fact that they're not going to be here. But I'd have to admit that after sales service was pretty shocking. Anyway, Kellys have handed back their Astras. Part of the thing, they can't run them this year because they're running Falcons, Mustangs, and they have a bit of Ford backing, so no Astras out of there. Given back to the owner. Team Sydney is still stuck in Queensland and will be for the foreseeable future. They can't move because they're in lockdown. Apparently everything but the insulation is done on the green shed. The green shed is what they'll be moving into at Sydney Motorsport Park until their proper factory gets built down there, which looks like it's getting further and further away. So even the things that Team Sydney looked like they were going to be able to control, doesn't look like they're going to be able to control. So could be still firing out of the Techno shed when the racing resumes. I suppose it's just another one of those things with the team that's gone from one disaster to another disaster. Team Sydney in Queensland. Scott McLaughlin isn't the only Supercars driver that's going to do a bit of international racing this weekend. Old Jaime, he's going to jump aboard a Formula 1 car on the Formula 1 game. Now, this really is a game that's not like a simulation like iRacing. It's a full-on game, so I'm not even going to bother watching. this time they've actually got a few proper races involved. I can't remember off the top of my head. There is a few actual Formula 1 drivers other than just the two that participated last time. Heine's going to step into, I assume it'll be Daniel Ricciardo's car. In the Renault car, a bit of a Castrol sponsorship tie-up thing with the Kellys and Renault being sponsored by Castrol. And he's going to race in the Vietnam Grand Prix that's actually going to take part on the Melbourne circuit this weekend. That's not confusing enough. Apparently there's no Vietnam track on the game yet because they haven't had a race there to be able to make the track on the game. I'm sure someone who's a lot higher up than me makes sense to them, so we'll leave it at that. So this week we finally get to see some more Supercars racing for the year, even if it is on iRacing. It's April 8th, which is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is now off the daylight savings time. It was lovely having a little bit of an extra sleep in this morning. Didn't have to feel guilty about that one. Obviously, Scott McLaughlin's probably going to be the favourite with his experience with IndyCar. But I reckon De Pasquale and Van Gisbergen are both very good at iRacing, had lots of practice. I suppose with these guys, a bit, I suppose, like with some of the IndyCar guys as well, depends on, because they're all getting given the same setup that Brody Kostecki's done. So, you know, could come down to who adapts to the car setup the quickest. Maybe Brody's helping out his old mate Anton with the setup. Who knows? Get all these conspiracy theories in before they begin. Be interesting, you know, where everyone kind of, you know, filters through. Guys like David Reynolds are probably going to be last. He has said that he is going to be lapped, but he's not going to let anyone pass him. So that could be interesting. Whoever's in first when Dave's coming up behind you, just, you know, maybe send him a fakie so he, you know, smashes the wrong way. It'll be broadcast on Fox Sports 506, I think, and yeah, I assume they're going to have it on YouTube or something like that, because really it would be dumb not to. I put the call out to some mates this week to answer some questions. Some of these were filmed before the calendar was released, so some of the answers are slightly redundant, but we'll go through them anyway.
Hi everyone, I'm Broomy from Full Boost.
Hi, I'm Glenn from Supercars Talk.
Hey, I'm Jason from Supercars Talk.
The first question I asked them, which iRacing track would you like to see the Supercars race at? My answer is probably either Brands Hatch or maybe Barber Motorsports Park. I have a bit of a limited amount of tracks that I know on iRacing. Some of them, other than say the Formula 1 tracks or the IndyCar tracks, there is a couple of good British tracks on there. I don't think Thruxton was on there, but I think Snetterton was. But I'd love to see it on the old Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. That's a great track to drive on. Or Barber Motorsports Park looks like a hoot. They would be great to see them on. Let's see what the other guys said.
I'm not too familiar with iRacing or what tracks are on there. I know Bathurst is on there, so how about we just race Bathurst every single week? Seems to be the only racing event that really matters on the Supercars calendar these days, according to TV ratings anyway, so why not do that?
I think only the Australian track should be as part of the Supercars series, so all the current ones, and definitely include Simmons Plains.
I think it would absolutely have to be Mazda Raceway or Laguna Seca. I think there's nothing more iconic than that downhill corkscrew, which I think could has some serious action and a bit of fun going down there. With
Next up was what current Formula 1 track would you like to see them race at? Monaco would be great, but I'm going for Baku. I reckon going through that castle section where it's nice and tight, plus that long straight, gives them a good chance for a bit of a, slipstreaming duel and things like that. Might have to put some different gearing in the cars for that one though. Not sure how it compares to the straight at Bathurst, but might be a bit of limiter bashing by the end. But I think that would be a great place to see the Supercars at.
Or either Monaco or Nürburgring.
Well, I think either Japan, Suzuka, or Spa, but I think I'd choose Spa. I think to see the cars going around the first corner after that first run, coming into that tight right-hander, would be quite interesting, and then downhill into the old famous En Rouge, and especially braking down at the end of En Rouge. I think they'd get some pretty high speeds down there and it'd make for some pretty spectacular action.
This is a category that completely bores me these days. I don't reckon I've seen a single race in the last 2 or 3 years. But if I had to pick one, I'd say Spa. It'd be pretty cool seeing V8 supercars go through Eau Rouge like that, so that'd be cool.
Then, which track from any time would you like to see them at? My answer is the original Surfers Paradise track. The current one is good, but it just seems to be over too quickly. I love that old one where you had, the two, where the first chicane, and then you had the second one that was basically exactly the same. You had that other chicane around the back that headed into the four chicane thing and I hate chicanes, but it was a track full of straights and chicanes. It was brilliant. Should bring it back.
Calder Park would be a good track to include.
I'm going to go a bit left of field here and say the Thunderdome at Calder Park. Yep, let's see them go as fast as they can and just turn to the left.
And then with the talk about wildcards in the series, which driver would you like to see in there as a wildcard from anywhere? I'd love to see Fernando Alonso give it a go. All this talk about how he's the greatest and everything. Be a good chance for him to put his money where his mouth is. And also, I'd love to see Brodie Kostecki or Will Brown or someone like that get in there and have a go with the main guys. That would be great to see. Let's see what the others said.
I'm not going to go from your traditional circuit racing sort of guys. I'm going to go for Sebastian Loeb, rallying superstar. I love him, love watching him. So, love to see a rally driver get behind the wheel of one of these things.
I have to pick Lewis Hamilton. I saw a video of him where he did a seat swap with Tony Stewart in a NASCAR, and I think he actually outdrove Tony Stewart in his own car after a couple of laps. So it'd be pretty cool to see if someone of Lewis Hamilton's caliber could outperform the current V8 supercar drivers. It'd be pretty cool to see.
Daniel Ricciardo.
And finally, a supercars driver from the past, I thought the default was going to be, a Brock or a Johnson, maybe a Moffat, things like that. I think we've had some different answers. And for me, I would love to see Murphy or Ingle getting in there. Those kind of, the guys who gave it a bit of push and shove, get in there, show some of these, they're a bit soft these days, show them how it's done.
Well, either Scathy or good old Peter Brock. I grew up following Peter Brock with the Holdens.
Growing up in the 90s, really loving watching the supercars back then. Someone who was always sort of a bridesmaid, never a bride at Bathurst was Glenn Seaton, so I'd like to see Cedo maybe get in there and win a Bathurst finally.
Definitely Craig Lenz, and he'll probably win.
Not Peter Brock?
Well, Peter Brock's not alive, so it'll be difficult for him to take part.
So after all that work with asking people about their tracks and stuff, the full lineup of tracks has been announced by Supercars. We've got 10 rounds. I'll run through them quickly. Round 1, we've got Phillip Island and Monza. 2 is Silverstone and Barcelona. Both of those are going to suck. Then number 3, we've just got Bathurst. Not sure on race formats and things like that at the moment. Number 4, we got Montreal and Watkins Glen. Montreal, another F1 track. Watkins Glen is going to be good. Montreal, I really like that track. Not sure how it's going to translate to supercars. 5, some more Formula 1s. We got Spa and Nürburgring. And I don't think it's going to be the Nordschleife. I think it's going to be the shitty Grand Prix track, which it's actually not a bad Grand Prix track, but when you got the Nordschleife there, that would be awesome, but I'm not sure how good a Supercars race with 25 cars and a 7-8 minute lap time is going to be running around there. If you could maybe, have an endurance race there or something with 100 cars or something, might be a bit interesting to watch. Number 6, we've got Coda and Sebring. We tried Coda a few years ago. That's boring. Sebring, I've heard it could be actually a really good track for the cars. Heard a lot about it. Never actually seen any racing there or anything, so I won't pass judgment yet. 7, we have the ovals, Daytona and Talladega. That will be interesting. That's basically just going to be flat out slipstreaming. Maybe they should do something with the gearing for that one. 8, we have Imola and Interlagos. A couple of great F1 tracks. I think they're probably going to suit a lot better than some of the other F1 tracks. 9, we have Road Atlanta and Road America. Road America, one of my favourite tracks of all time. I remember playing that on a few games back in the day. I think I even had a modified version of Grand Prix 2 so that you could add in tracks like that. Road America, 2 thumbs up. And then round 10, we've got Oran Park and Bathurst. So back at Bathurst and, run around Oran Park again, which always saw good racing. So that's all for Supercars Talk this time. Next time, I'll have a review of the BP Supercars All-Stars ESeries race. That really sounds like a stupid cricket thing. Before I go though, one question that is probably on all of your lips. What paint job will Nick Percat run? Hopefully that question might be answered before this video comes out. So until next time, I'll see you later.
Hey, I'm Jason from Supercars Talk.